Welcome to the printer app. So this is a desktop application I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 months, written in Electron, which is basically JavaScript for the desktop. This is for our photo lab. I run a photo lab and we make lots of prints from online orders, and this is just something to make that easier and keep track of things in a better way than what we've been doing. Normally we print everything through Darkroom. I love Darkroom, used Darkroom for 20 plus years, since before it was Darkroom, used to be package and print. Love that software, much better than using the onboard printer software on a Noritsu or on a Frontier. This printer app sort of is like Darkroom, only very specific for what I wanted to do as a lab. Might also work for somebody else who works in a lab. I think it's sort of universally fills some of the things you might want something like Darkroom to do, but it can't. Right now I have it set up to monitor 2 different incoming folders. This is just a test version of this. I'm not going to show any production images. I'm not going to show any real orders, so it's a little tedious to look at some of this. I've duplicated a bunch of orders here. Sometimes creating actual real orders, I don't know, I just don't have the patience for it, and so I end up with a lot of lame looking orders. But it's good enough to show what it does. So don't be distracted by this. At work, we're using this in production. This list could be pretty long, although it does auto-archive itself, so it depends on what type of orders it is. Smaller orders, sometimes we have a lot of them, it'll build up in here. Larger orders, sometimes there's not really that many, might look a lot like this. So I just have an example of a second tab over here. You can monitor different incoming folders for orders. So in my ordering system, I can control where the folders go of the order. So let's just click on an order. This is just a very simple order for one 8x10. So when you click on an order on the left-hand column, it loads in the images from that order. And they load them in as a grid. They're not separated by the size and quantity or the catalog in the grid. They're just all in here, probably based on file name or the way they were in the file system. It's stripping out the individual folders. So it's reading the structure of a folder, and the way our ordering system works is you get a parent folder with the customer's name and an order number. Inside of that you get a catalog folder, and inside of the catalog folder you get a product folder, quantity, and then dash each. So this app is reading all of this information and building out what the order is actually for by knowing that this catalog, this subfolder is a catalog, and this subfolder of the catalog folder is the product folder, dash QTY, dash a number, and then dash each. It's reading all this out and stripping out the information. If I make a random folder in here and just call it new folder or something, it's not going to like that. It needs a very specific order structure. So this folder structure on all of these, if you look at them, that's what's being read in by the app. And then, so I'll show you one that's got a lot of images. These happen to all be 8x10s. Let's find something a little more complicated. So this one's got a 10x10 and then a whole bunch of 5x7s. If I scroll all the way down, the 10x10s here, you're not really ever going to be looking at these images in the grid. Realistically, you're going to click on these buttons up at the top to send them to a printer. So this interfaces with a Noritsu hot folder printer. So the Noritsu hot folder software that you might have on your Noritsu is expecting a text file that tells it which files to print as what size. So I have a printer set up for what we have at 39. I have this one as 39A. And if I make a print, I can print it to the 39A, or I also can print it to Darkroom. Darkroom is very handy to have as a printer type, and it has a similar hot folder ability like the Noritsu hot folder. The later versions of Darkroom have a command file structure. So I have a printer set up as a Darkroom command file type printer, and I can print to it as well. So there's multiple different ways you can make a print. You can see in the grid, every one of the images has a bunch of space. I'll go over that in a minute. But it also has buttons down here. You could add something in like this, and now you can see over in the cart, I've added this as 5x7, 7 prints. Over here you can see it's saying red, you've ordered too many. So one of the purposes of this app is to better control that you get all the prints that somebody ordered. This one says 5x7 quantity 4. In our old way of doing this, we'd be doing this in darkroom, and you'd have to notice on here that they wanted 4, and you'd have to change the quantity manually to 4. We've sent out lots of orders where there's only 1 of each, and they really wanted 4 of each. So that's one thing that this solves, is it reads the quantity for you and the size. It's also reading the catalog. So it's, you could occasionally maybe print them on the wrong paper surface or something like that. This is reading all of that in, and the software is creating the orders for you based on what the customer wants. So on an order, we'll just say this order for an example. If we were going to work on this order, I wouldn't be going around clicking on any of these buttons in here. I would just say I have 10-inch paper loaded in the machine, 10-inch luster. I'm going to print everything that's a 10-inch print right now, and I'm going to send it to the 39A. Says job completed. Now this line item, the button's not clickable anymore because the order is complete. And if I scroll all the way down, images that have been printed and are complete get sorted to the bottom, and they get a green background on them. And then down below, the reason why there's this space is that there's history of what you did. If I roll over it, it says printed on February 11th as size 10x10 luster prints. And then it gives, if you're not rolling over, it just says a relative time. So a few seconds ago I did this. If something was wrong with this and I need to redo it, I can click this, and now this has been unprinted. It's no longer been printed, and now I can click this button again, add it to the cart, print it to the 39A, and now if I go down and look at it again, now it has 2 lines of history. It's keeping track of everything you do. This is very handy if you need to, 500 4x6s of one file, and you don't want to send all 500 at once. We used to write that down. How many have you done? Darkroom would just tell you whether or not something's been printed or not. Wouldn't tell you how many have been printed. Now it is telling you that. It will also tell you if you haven't made all of them. So this one wants 4. If for some reason I did want to click this and then I print it to the 39A, now it's a different color. It's yellow to say that it's sort of in progress. It's partially printed. It's not complete. Still needs 3 is what it says here. It says I did 1. Again, I could click this to mark it as a redo and get back to 4, or I could just print 3 more. But again, that's not what you would normally be doing. You'd be using these buttons. You'd be using these buttons up at the top that you can configure a batch quantity for. So when you're shipping something or when you're packaging it, maybe you want them to come out. Maybe you want to know what a stack of 100 is, or 150 or 200. For us, 270 and 265 or something, we have boxes made for that hold that amount of prints, makes packaging easier. So I'm just going to leave this set to 100 and say I want to print 100 5x7s of this order. It needs 239. Well, needed originally, ordered 239, printed as 1, it still needs 238. If I click this, it's going to add the next 100 in the cart. It knows this one was quantity 4, but only 1, but 1 has already been printed. It just put 3 in the cart for me. I don't have to worry too much. Personally, I am worried because I wrote this code, but you don't have to worry too much that it's doing the right amount of prints. So now I'm going to say I want to print those. And now up here it's saying ordered 239. That hasn't changed. That's what the customer ordered. Printed 101. Still needs 138. Now if I click it again, I can add those next 100, and now it needs 38 more. I'll click on that. So now you can see all of the grid thumbnails are background green. If for some reason you went in here and you made 5 of this one, it's telling you not to. If you did that, that one's going to sort at the top to tell you that you did too many. You should never have anything here that's got this pink background. That means you did too many. which generally means there's something wrong. So I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck that, and now it goes back to where it was in the list. So that's one way you can make an order. Another way, and a reason why I have all these small orders up at the top, sometimes we have a lot of small orders that are in a row, and they're different customers. Maybe they're little drop ship orders or something like that, and you just want to get through them. That's what these buttons at the top are. They're not always there. When you're on a bigger order, the print all buttons are not there. These buttons can be a little dangerous if you had a whole bunch of images and you accidentally clicked print all. This is literally going to print this entire order to whatever printer you click on. It's also going to automatically go to the next order, and it's also going to check this archive checkbox. So another thing we want to know is what orders are done and to get them out of the queue once they're done. This order that we just worked on has an orange folder on it now. That means that something has been done with this order and it's sort of in process. Since we didn't use the print all button at the top, we need to manually mark it as ready for the archive. Now it's green over here to tell you this order is done. When you set up the folders that you're going to monitor up here for orders, there's an archive delay, and then there's a job that runs in this application every night that will check the archive delay, and if the archive button was checked, this is creating a file in the folder that says to archive. If that date timestamp is older than the archive delay, then it will automatically move them into an archive folder. Much like if I right click on this, I can tell it to archive this order and it's going to disappear, and now it's gone into an archive folder. I can actually pull it back in by saying find old order. I don't know what it was called. They all seem to be called Fromex. You'd be typing in a customer's name more than likely, or an order number. It's sort of a fuzzy search, and that's that order. I just pulled it back in. So if you had a problem with an order that you did a few weeks ago, you wouldn't want it to be in this list anymore. You can pull it back in and look at it, and now you can see all of the print history, what machine it was printed on, how many there were, what time it was printed at. So back to these little orders. So the purpose of these print all buttons up here, it's going to print the entire order, it's going to advance to the next order, and it's going to click the archive button. So if you have the paper loaded for whatever these are going to be, you can just sit here and click this button. It takes a second for it to do it, and then look over here. It's marked the order as archive, it's printed it, and you can just go down a list of, I press the skip button. That's not going to do anything. There's also a skip button there. Sometimes there'll be a big order mixed in one of these, and you can just press skip, or you can actually press the tab key and it will go down through them. But I'll go back to that one, and you can just go through the list. When we're doing this, we would be looking at the work order, looking at the order, looking at this app, and then clicking the button each time to make sure we're in sequence. Not just spamming the button really fast. We're taking a second to do it. So the fact that it takes a second for it to print them and then go on to the next one is no problem for us. So another thing about this is that this is synced in with our ordering system. It's showing statistics about the order over here, the order date, the last render date. That should have a date on it. I think this is just one of the orders I've been messing around with for a long time, right? October of 24. There is a last render date, so if you re-render the order, it would tell you a different date than when it was ordered. It's also telling you the number of original images that came in, the order total, customer's phone number, and the email. If I click on the email, it will automatically pull up my client for email with the customer's email, subject pre-filled in, and then the customer's first name. This information is coming in from our ordering system via a stats file. This is something that I think if other people were going to use it, their ordering system company could probably make this stats file. It's not particularly fancy. So another thing we like to do in our lab is, let's see here. Here's a small order. This person ordered one glossy 5x7. We don't always run, we might have all the different magazines loaded with different widths and surfaces, but if you don't have any other glossy 5x7s to do, but you have glossy 8x10s in there, if I click this button, it's going to print a glossy 5x7. I can make an alternate product and list it next to this 5x7 product as an alternate, and now I can print it as a 5x7 on 10-inch paper or whatever the product I had to set up this product, but I could set it up to print it on any other paper type I would want. I wouldn't do this if they wanted 100 of them. I would go to the effort to put the glossy 5x7 paper in there. But if all day you have is just one 5x7 on glossy and you have 10-inch glossy in the machine, then you can just click this and it's going to print it out on 10-inch paper, and you won't have to balance 5-inch glossy. You won't have to get up and change the magazine, etc. And you can have as many of these alternates as you want, although there's only a limited amount of space here. So I think in production we might have a couple of products that have 2 or 3, like 4x6 and 5x7. You might want to do one on, maybe we do have 5-inch, but we don't have 4-inch or 6-inch in. You could do the 4x6 on 5-inch. You could do a 5x7 on 6-inch or 10-inch. We have a handful of use cases like that. In Darkroom, we would do that by applying a template to stuff, but it was difficult to find the products. Here I can have them associated with the main product, and it's really easy to do. There's also some other things you can do by right-clicking on a folder. Sometimes you just want to see what that folder is. Right-click to reveal it in Explorer. So you can also right-click and open the main folder in Bridge. So that took us straight to that folder. You'd also be able to open for us, I can also open the ZZ Originals folder directly. So if I wanted to color correct the whole order and then re-render it, I could do that easily. When you're on so right click on an image and open it in Photoshop. So you could do something to the image, if you needed to do some retouching or something real quick. What else can you do? If you want to bypass, so since a lot of this is reading the folder structure and doing what the folder structure says to do, it's sort of a closed system. But what if you wanted to print this one image as, instead of a 5x7, what if you wanted to make a 4x6 of this? There is no real easy way to do that in the normal UI because that's not something you should be doing. You can right click, click batch, add to cart, and now you can choose any product that you've set up and put it in the cart. So I'll say this really should be an 11x14, and I'll say it needs 1. So now even though this said glossy prints 5x7, I've sort of hijacked it. I'm pretty sure this is a luster 11x14. So one of the other things you can do is sometimes we like to give people a summary of what we printed for them. This will be a good one. So 29 11x14s, I'm going to click that. Now there's a print summary checkbox here. There's also a redo checkbox. So if this had already been printed and you needed to redo it one way or another, you could also click this to mark all the history that you're going to create when this is printed as a redo. That comes in handy in certain situations. So I'm going to print this to the 39A with a print summary. And now if I go look, the print summary can print automatically if you have Irfan View installed. You can give the app the path to that and it will print that for you. And let's see. Here's what a print summary looks like. This is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so we would print this on a laser printer. It gives you the order number and then all of the file names along with the quantities that were printed and then some totals down at the bottom. This is a little code down at the bottom, says 8:13 p.m. on the 11th. And then up here is the code for the printer, so you can know that it was printed on what machine. And then there's a check mark down there to say that all of these are full sets. If somebody wanted 300 of one and you only sent 250, then there would be the checkbox wouldn't be there. I think it would say partial instead. That's just about all of the functionality that goes on here. There's a settings page. This is where I've set up various catalogs and products. You do have to manually go through and match and create all of the products. The catalog name has to match the folder names that come in, but you can have an alias. So if I edit this, we have a Luster Prints catalog, but I also have 8x10s that are Luster that are in a package prints catalog. So you can just add aliases for other catalogs that are the same as this, so you don't have to make a new catalog for package prints. If package prints are really Luster prints and they have the same sizes, then you're done. Just add in the alias. And then there's one last thing here. We have a history. So on this page, it shows a print history that you can filter out by different date ranges. This only goes back a day. I sort of nuked everything so I could start from scratch. But it's more or less showing you the same batches that you printed and what size, what quantity, file names. You can mark this as a reprint if you needed to say this is a redo. Sometimes this is easier to do than the little button. If you had a whole bunch, like this one, you can mark all of those. Actually, that was print a summary, so you can also print a summary of this if you forgot to check the checkbox and you really wanted one for this person. You can also mark it all as a reprint. And now if I go back to this order, that one there, right? I think that's what we just did. We undid this. Some of it's still complete. The 10x10 is a separate batch. I think that's about it. We're using this in production. It's been awesome so far. I really like it. It's definitely an improvement over Darkroom, which was definitely an improvement over the onboard software on our Noritsu. I really like it.